Hey everyone, and we're just going to carry on with this interactive PDF. What we're going to do right now is we're going to do color callouts. So first of all, I am going to have an overlay very similar to the black rectangle that we had before, but I'm just going to go into Photoshop and pre-prep this asset. Basically, I'm going to put a blur on the image, then export it as a PSD or whatever format you want, and then I'm going to use that as an overlay layer on top of the image underneath. So when you hover over something, it's going to make it look like the actual image itself has gone blurry. So you can once again draw attention to the object that you want the viewer to look at. So that's now in place. And then if I put the blurry image on top, done. So what we're going to do is color callouts. This is so when we hover over a certain part of the image, whatever color's on there will kind of pop up and give you the color code for it. Thankfully, as this has, well, primarily two colors, but also I'm going to use the tires as well. If we hover over the body, it's going to come up with the blue. If we hover over the wheels or maybe some bodywork, it's going to come up with the orange. And if we hover over the tire, it's going to come out black. You could do other things like chop the guy out in the background and see what color he goes. So all we need to do is click the eyedropper tool and get the color, add it to a swatch, and then we can use that as background, we can use it as fill, we can use it as whatever we want. This is on screen, so it's going to be RGB. If you're going to be doing this as a presentation for something that's going to be CMYK, it's definitely going to be worth having the CMYK values on there as well, or any other values that you want. Now I've created my first circle with orange in it. I'm going to do the same for all the other colors, but first of all, I'm going to make sure I've got those colors in my swatches. So as I said, I'm going to go for 3 colors. This is going to be tire, add it to swatches, done. So now what I want to do is draw all around the body. So when we hover over the blue bit of the body, the blue color will pop out. So we know that that's the blue color. So I'm just going to select the correct one, use the pen tool, and trace around the outside of the car. You can easily do this in Illustrator or Photoshop or something like that, and then just use it as an overlay image. While that is fairly obvious, it's a lot easier to simply have the image as like a 1% opacity. So then it doesn't look like it's there. It will appear, and it will mean it's a kind of object that you can use. So you can hover over it, you can click on it, and it counts as a button. Ignore that extra line on the bonnet. So we're going to do the standard thing, turn it into a button, so when we roll over it, it's going to make the blue appear. As per usual, remember to name it. As I said, it's going to make your life so much easier. Do the same thing with every button. And then when you've done that, we're actually going to go and make this work. It's at this point I am going to change the overlay image on top of the car body to a 1% opacity. It's not going to be noticeable. This would be better if it was a translucent image created from Illustrator or Photoshop, because then it would still count as an image on top of it. But you got to make sure it's got those cutouts, especially if it's something like this. Because, for instance, if I was using the wheel and then the body went over the wheel, then as soon as you hover over one or the other, it's going to come up with the wrong color. So preferably you want it to be an accurate mask. Bear in mind, a lot of different shapes on the image can lead to the same colors. So, for instance, the orange on the front fender and the wheels and on the roof, if you have all those as individual buttons, but they do the same thing and make the orange appear, then it's a little bit of extra work, but it will still work perfectly. So, checking the preview, and the color appears. It's been successful. So the next thing we got to do is actually get the values of the color. So just have a look through the color in your swatches and preferably copy them over. Make them look in the same style as the rest of your presentation or interactive PDF, and you should be fine from there. So I'm going to speed this bit up. So technically these would be done a lot better if the actual kind of circles of the text within it weren't separate items. If the text was actually embedded within the image itself, that means when you hover over each letter, it's not going to flick off it, because hovering your mouse cursor over something that kind of breaks the link between the circle and the text on top of it will cause you problems with interactivity. So if you can do, either flatten the text and have it as a flat image so the image goes on top, and you can click on it to remove it. So once again, this is the same as the body. This is just the front bumper. I'm not going to do the whole thing. So I know that's my trigger, and I want that to make the orange appear. And finally, I'm going to do the same thing with the wheel. Preferably do it on both wheels. I'm not going to do it for this example. But once again, name your button, change it, and make it link to that color callout code. So set up your buttons to do the thing that you want them to do. Make sure everything links, and when you roll off one, the other ones are going to appear as well. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck in limbo. If you do something to remove a button and you haven't got something to return it, you're not going to be able to get it working. Make sure everything works. Mine works. When you click on it, they appear. So next, save it. Just Command S it whenever you can. So now, I'm going to have to do it so when I hover over the colors, the color codes actually appear. As is the button. When you roll it over, show hide button, it's going to show the color code. Just make sure the actual overlay that you've got is a self-enclosed image, so the text is kind of embedded within the image. The text is just pixels rather than vectors and separate objects, because that's going to cause you problems in the long run. As I said before, if you hover the mouse over a separate vector image that is kind of in the way of the mouse interacting with the object behind it, it's going to break whatever action it's going to be doing, especially if it's a rollover, even a click. So if I had it so I hover over the orange image behind, then if the text appeared in front of it and you hovered over the text, that would prevent the text being shown because I'm hovering over the text itself. Give it a go, and hopefully that makes sense. So testing it on another preview. That works, see that? That's where it's flickering because it's text. But if you hover just over on the correct color, it'll be fine. As you can see on the actual thing itself, when you hover over the bodywork, it's only a 1% opacity. However, on the preview, it obviously looks a little bit more heavy duty than it really is because it doesn't do translucency and opacity particularly well. You can save it or export it and give that a go, but we're going to do that on the next video. So if you've done that, congratulations. Next we're going to embed a video.